So Trump is threatening to put 10% tariffs on dozens of countries, but also Trump is saying that we're going to tariff Canada because they're invading us with wildfire smoke, right?
Mr. President, on your tariffs last night, the Canada tariffs, what are those a response to the wildfires in?
No, that's separate. We're looking at that separately.
And what, is there anything Canada
It's only
can do?
response to the way they've treated our farmers and our people. Yeah, Canada's been very, very tough on us over the years, for many years, and no other president's done anything about it. I love Canada. I love the people of Canada. Many friends that live in Canada, but their leadership from Trudeau to the current leadership, I mean, in all fairness to them, they need us to survive. Without us, there's no way they can survive. So, but they've been very, very tough over a period of the last 50 years, actually.
Is there anything
On tariffs, you increased the tariffs on Canada yesterday. Can you say if you still expect to impose tariffs on the wildfire problem? And can you say when you might impose 301?
A lot of damage has been done. They're not managing their forests properly, and the wind has a
Okay, so it is about the fires.
tendency to blow right over New York City, right over, you saw Detroit, they had to close the whole place. Michigan was really affected. They had to close businesses for 4 days. It's very serious what they're doing, and they don't seem to be able to do anything about it. If they managed their forests, they wouldn't have the fires.
Okay, are we actually doing this? CBC is saying that we're hitting Canada with these tariffs. Is this actually happening? I don't know what's happening.
I was one of the reporters on a phone call with a senior Trump administration official getting all the details about these new tariffs about to hit Canada. Wine, beer, wood products, cement, even hockey sticks are among the goods that are going to be hit by this new 50% tariff that kicks in 30 days from now. All of the products listed by the White House, there are going to be no CUSMA-related tariff exemptions. There are some key industries, though, that will not be hit, including the energy sector. The White House has raised 3 sore points. One, they're angry about the provinces banning alcohol. They're also angry about Canadian actions in the auto sector, and they're mad about Canadian protections for the dairy industry. The Trump administration views these policies as discriminatory and unfair. This is happening at a moment of great uncertainty in the Canada-U.S. relationship and is going to make things worse. And that's because Canada...
I understand Dems would lead us down this path, but can you really say they would have hit the gas as hard? I think that, so an important part to me of socialist critique or of sort of the material dialectic as an analytical framework is understanding that great man theory by and large is bullshit. For the most part, people respond in predictable ways to environmental and material circumstances. For example, there have been some good monarchs in history. There have been monarchs that have been wise and relatively benevolent, and there have been monarchs who have been fucking lunatics. The important thing to recognize is that the variable here, really for the most part, is just people can be different. Like, there are good and bad people, therefore there would be good and bad monarchs. It is the monarchy itself that is the issue, right? Like, the problems in a bad monarchy are exacerbated, not alleviated, by the fact that it's a monarchy, whereas there are limits to what good a monarch can do through a monarchy, right? It is the framework, it is the system that matters. The people are predictably influenced by the framework of the system. Likewise, men who might have been good as democratic representatives have been made monsters by authoritarianism. You know, it's the incentive structures present. It's just an incentives-based approach to analysis. The problem is that, like, Trump might be an egregious fucking president in so many levels, in so many ways, but, like, we were always headed this way. How quickly we would have arrived at this point, I don't know. Like, Louis XIV was pretty bad, right? Do you think if we'd made it past Louis XIV, if he had been more manageable, if he had been less unreasonable, do you think maybe we would have gone to a 15th or a 16th? Would it matter? In the long arc of history, I feel like these questions are less important than to what extent was Louis XIV created by the monarchy? You know, to what extent was his reign and its consequences a product of the system he was born into? Might he have been good? Sure, possibly. Oh, wait, am I thinking of the 16th, not the 14th? I'm sorry, I was thinking of the 16th, not the 14th. If you think about it, 16 and 14 are both, like, they start with 1 and they're, even numbers, so they're pretty similar, I'd say. I'd say that 14 is maybe the number most similar to 16, with the possible exception of 18. But they're all in the ballpark. Now, 15 and 13 are totally different, of course, because they're odd. What was the point that I was making? I'm sorry. The point that I'm trying to make here is that I think that Trump's eccentricities make him an excellent scapegoat. I think that Trump's eccentricities make him a really easy, ludicrous figure to point at so people in the future can blame him. But I think that when we do that, we are making the same mistake that people to our right do when they deliberately strawman the left. Or to put it another way, we're pointing at Trump and saying, he's the reason this fell apart, the same way like a Democrat like Adam Smith might point at like a crazy Twitter lefty and go, they're the reason this fell apart. Or why Republicans pointed at some of the more like aggressive, unreasonable Black Lives Matter protesters. You know what I mean? You want to make it out to be like, well, this one crazy example is the problem, but it's really like the incentives that lead to those people, you know? Absent those incentives, would those people have been as prominent? Would those people have been politically relevant at all? Would we even be talking about these people? Likely not. I doubt we'd be talking about Louis XVI if it wasn't for the French monarchy, right? Would he have been notable as a peasant or as a common man? Probably not. Sorry. I don't think Trump would have become what Trump was if it wasn't for capitalism, obviously. Like, capital made him and put him where he was. But if we had even a more well-managed, more well-regulated, liberal capitalist country, if our political system wasn't so hopelessly bought out by capital, do any of you honestly think he would have won? Do you really think that a pedophile, rapist, serial bankrupting, like low IQ, openly corrupt New York real estate guy would have, with his candor, with his behavior, really been able to win? I'm not saying that rich fucks haven't won before. Of course they have. But do you think he would have in a more well-managed system? My argument is no. So again, I think he's an excellent scapegoat. I don't think that he describes the problem. I think that we've been headed down this path for a long time. I'm sorry, I'm rambling again.
President Trump reigniting the trade war with Canada. I guess it's been ignited, igniting further the trade war with Canada. 50% tariffs on certain Canadian goods.
So the point, as I understand you, is that power and capital accumulation creates a superstructure that unravels our whole society. At the end of the day, it's about incentives. The people in charge of society, the people with the power to make decisions, need to have incentives that align them with the interests of, ideally, the population, but failing that, reality. The people in charge need to be beholden to reality. This is historically one of the reasons why divine hereditary monarchies are a really bad system of government, because you're basically telling these rich fucks that God chose them and no one else can lead, only them. Obviously, this is going to produce people who are out of touch with reality. Oftentimes, it wasn't the kings themselves that ruled, it was the aristocrats underneath them who actually had to like manage the kingdom, you know, who would sort of like politically maneuver around the monarch. The monarch was often delusional, narcissistic, and self-centered, but they had to be worked around to produce good outcomes, because the king rarely did the direct management that would lead them to understand what was necessary for their kingdom to thrive. I'm speaking very, very generally. I understand there have been good, well-managing kings or whatever, like Queen Victoria was very directly involved. Like, I understand I'm painting with very broad strokes here, but this is like, generally speaking, my way of expressing the underlying point, which is that you need leadership. You need government that understands what is going on in the world and does its best to accommodate that reality. And I think that capitalism is over time eroding the systems that align the interests of our leaders with the interests of the people and reality. That's it. That's why I say it's illiberal. It's not the people, it's the proletariat. Well, the proletariat didn't exist back in the medieval days, right? Like, the proletariat is a modern distinction. The bourgeois proletariat distinction is a contemporary, you know, capitalist one. I'm speaking broadly, like in a, like even back with the pharaohs, right? Like, you would want a pharaoh that understands what's going on in the world. To boil it down to like the simplest possible point, right? There is a massive difference between a pharaoh that understands whether or not their people are being fed and like the trade and tariff policies they employ in response to that information. That is to say, if there was a pharaoh who was very cruel but understood well the trade routes that supplied their empire with food, they could respond to that knowledge and at the very least, in spite of their cruelty, make sure the people are being fed. A good pharaoh wants their people to be fed. You don't benefit from everyone starving to death, then you have no one to boss around. You want people to be well fed. So if you are aware of what's going on in the world, if you are familiar with the incentive structures, if you know what you need to do to produce good outcomes, you can do it, even if you're an authoritarian. But many pharaohs, I'm assuming, I don't know much about ancient Egypt, probably were fucking delusional. They were like, oh, I'm the child of Ra, I'm literally a sun god made manifest, why should I need to know about boring trade policy? And then they do some stupid shit like fucking tariff grain imports or whatever else, you know? I don't know. I'm again, the specifics of the historical lesson here are less important to me than the underlying point, which is that like the incentive structure has to align with reality. You understand what I'm talking about?
People, how big a deal this is.
This is a surprisingly big deal, actually. And it's fitting this as part of your series on the cost of living crisis because it just got a little bit harder for everyone. And by the way, I really do want to compliment you on the important work that you're doing there. Look, let me explain the background. The president has been batting around Canada like a cat who's just found a mouse. He's been doing it for years now. He came to power when NAFTA was the trade agreement that had originally been negotiated by Clinton. He tore that up. He renegotiated it. He then came to power a second time. He tore it up. He renegotiated. In fact,
Fascinating stuff. I'm sorry, my mind is all over the place right now. All over the place. Trump to allow direct U.S. flights to Lebanon? Wait, what? Why would we be allowing direct flights to Lebanon right now? They're getting bombed. Why, what? I don't know. I don't know. My mind's all over the place right now. It's crazy, crazy shit.